Welcome to this edition of the Straight Edge Game Room, where we're going to be looking at a handheld emulation console, the Miyoo Mini Plus, or is it Miyoo Mini Plus? However it's pronounced, it's a handheld that emulates various retro game consoles and pirates many video game ROMs. Now, I'm not advocating anyone to start pirating video games or any content of any kind, but if you have a physical copy of a certain game, I believe it's legal for you to have a digital copy of it as well, as long as you're not selling it or giving it out. Now, many of you might not like the emulation aspect of this, and I can totally understand that. I have a deep appreciation for original hardware, but you can't really take your physical copies with you everywhere you go, so this is a good substitute for that. I'm aware that there's an Onion OS operating system that you can upgrade this device to. However, I'm just going to show you its standard apparatus out of the box and focus mostly on the games and its emulation. Select the game option and you're greeted with a menu of various video game consoles. Select which console you want to play and it gives you a library of what games you can select from. And this thing came loaded with lots of games. Now, I can't talk about every single video game console and game that's on this because it would take too long, but you got arcade, home consoles, handhelds, and a whole bunch of ROMs preloaded onto this thing, so it'll keep you busy for a while on that long road trip. This thing even has a Rickroll in it, but I can't show you that for copyright reasons. There's another option on this called RetroArch, which acts similar to Game, but it has a different collection of emulators. Most of them are empty, so you gotta go online and load them yourself on the SD card. I like how it has a DOSBox emulator there, but I don't have any games for it. But in the future, I might review some abandonware on this console. Some of these emulators have their own special borders, which are not essential, but they actually look pretty cool. Opting out of the games in RetroArch is a little bit different than that in Game, so that takes a little getting used to. Let's take a look at the unit itself. You can tell that the design is very much inspired by the first Game Boy that came out in the late 80s. It has a very Super Nintendo-like D-pad. You got 4 action buttons on the front. This one is to up out of the game and into a menu. You got your start and select button right here. You got 4 trigger buttons. This one right here, R2, can act as a fast forward button. It depends on which game you're playing and which emulator. These 2 buttons right here, the darker colored ones, can act as turbos, but like I said for the other button, it depends which game you're playing. You have your USB-C port right here for charging. You have a headphone jack. Down here is your SD card slot, which contains the ROMs. Let me put that back in. And your volume switch right here. It also came with this USB SD card converter. I guess so you can load more ROMs into your SD card. There's your instruction manual, which comes in English as well as Chinese, whether that's Mandarin or Cantonese. I don't know. I really don't know how the language works over there in that part of the world. You got your wipes. It came with a protective cellophane cover, but I already peeled that off. In here, I guess it comes with an extra screen if you crack that one. I'm really not sure. I'm not going to try to pop this one out to find out, but it comes with a clear plastic case of some kind of shell. I'm not sure. So This is, I think, the second iteration of this particular console, the Miyoo Mini Plus, or Miyoo. You guys can correct me if I get anything wrong in my videos. Feel free to leave a comment. I messed around with the SD card on my laptop and went online and tried to load some Bible games into this. 2 of them worked, 2 didn't. So it could be that the files were corrupt or I just did something wrong. But technically you could load more games into this if you want. Not all of the games that I found on this console worked properly. Some of them would crash mid-game, some of them would crash upon activation. Upgrading to the latest Onion OS operating system might correct this. However, I'll let you guys look up videos on that and figure it out. For me personally, the Miyoo Mini Plus will never be a replacement for original hardware and physical copies of games. However, there are some games that are just way out of my batting range in price, and reviewing those will be a challenge. So this might come in handy in the future for reviewing those kind of games as well as abandonware. If you don't want to use the Miyoo Mini Plus for pirating, what you can do is get every ROM of every Super Nintendo game that you physically own, for example, and load them onto this. That way you can play those games on the go. And as long as you're using it for your own personal enjoyment, there's no foul in that. I haven't even talked about the screen, which is very high quality. It's beautifully lit and everything is in beautiful definition. If it's too bright or too dim, you can adjust the lighting on it. My camera did have a little trouble picking it up. However, once I turned off some of the lights in the room and dimmed the screen, it picked it up pretty good. And I say pretty good at no fault of the handheld itself. That's mostly because of my camera. The Miyoo Mini Plus is a very high-end emulation handheld that can be used for good, it can be used for bad, but I'll let your convictions decide how you use it. Well, that about wraps up this review, but not without first giving a huge Straight Edge Game Room shout out to Miss Ashley Benson in McNeil, Arizona. Thanks for sending this to the show. You rock!
Come on! Come on! Come on! Practice more.